This program is made possible by the support of Delta Dental, Quick Trip, Marshfield Clinic Health System, Wisconsin Counties Association, Wisconsin Hospital Association. Watch Wisconsin Eye on Spectrum Channels 995 and 363 and at wisi.org.
Hey, everybody, this is Reed Magny at the Elections Commission. We'll get started here in a minute or so. It looks like we've got about 11 people. Do you want to wait another minute, Megan, or do you want to get started? Or
why don't we give it just a minute?
Okay.
Then we can keep going.
Yeah. We will make the video available afterwards, so in case somebody missed it, they can pick it up. Oh, we've got all of 13 now, so.
Great. We can probably get started then.
Sure.
All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and happy Election Day to Wisconsin. I'm Meagan Wolfe, the administrator of the Wisconsin State Elections Commission and the nonpartisan chief election official for the state of Wisconsin. And I know today's a very busy day in Wisconsin government, so I do appreciate those of you that have joined us today taking the time this brief update and of course an opportunity to answer any questions that you might have on this election day. So today is Wisconsin's nonpartisan spring primary election, and polls are open across the state from 7 a.m. until 8 p.m. today. And despite freezing temperatures and significant snowfall in parts of the state, all polls were able to open this morning as expected. Today's election is for the statewide contest, the primary for Superintendent of Public Instruction. So everyone will see that contest on their ballot. There are also two special primaries for Senate District 13 and State Assembly District 89 to fill vacancies. In addition to that, there are about 101 primaries for county, school district, city, village, and town offices across the state. And voters can find out what is on your ballot in your community by going to myvote.wi.gov. And Wisconsin has a February nonpartisan primary election every year. Again, this is mostly the primary for your local contest. It's narrowing the field for who's going to appear on the ballot in April. The February election is historically a very low turnout election, averaging around 10% of eligible voter turnout. And this is in contrast to a November election where we can see upwards of 70% eligible voter turnout. So even though it's a low turnout election, each of Wisconsin's 1,850 communities still need to prepare their polling places and recruit and train poll workers. There are the same pre-election tests of voting equipment, as well as the 3 levels of certification of the election that are going to happen at the municipal, county, and state level for this election, just like in November, just like in every other election. And so it's also, important to remember that for this election and all elections, every aspect of the election is also publicly observable. And again, this includes those pre-election tests. It includes those canvasses or those checks on the process at the municipal, county, and state level. And it also includes things like the counting of the absentee ballots at your polling place or your central count facility. There's a lot of work, resources, security efforts that are put into this and every election. And so, of course, we encourage everyone to participate because in the February and the April elections, these are the contests that determines who's going to hold office in your community. A few reminders for today's election. So if you're voting using an absentee ballot by mail, your ballot must be received by 8 p.m. on election day in order to be counted. Now, the USPS says it can take up to a week for that mail to be received. So it is now too late for you to put that ballot in the mail today. So if you still have your ballot, do not mail it. You're going to bring that to your polling place or your city central count facility. You can check myvote.wi.gov to find out about absentee ballot drop-off opportunities, again, in your community. You can also go there to track your absentee ballot if you chose that method for voting. So far, about 318,000 absentee ballots have been reported as issued across the state. At least 127,000 absentee ballots have now been reported as returned. And that includes 9,000 ballots that were cast during in-person absentee voting in the clerk's office over the last 2 weeks. Another tip is if you're headed to the polls today, your polling place may have changed since November. So before you head to the polls, check myvote.wi.gov to make sure that you know where your polling place is. And you can also see what's on your ballot and check your registration status while you're there. When you go to vote, you're going to need to show an acceptable photo ID before you receive a ballot. And you can find that list of IDs on myvote.wi.gov. And for voting purposes, your ID does not need to be a new one with the star on it. It also does not need to have your current address printed on it. But it does need to be valid in one of the IDs that are allowable under state law, like a Wisconsin state ID card or a Wisconsin driver license, a US passport, a student ID, or a military ID. And again, you can check the website for the complete list. If you don't have the ID that you need for voting today, the DMV can help you get one for free. And there's also provisional ballots available at your polling place. And so in the event that you don't have the ID you need, you still need to get one, you'll be able to get a provisional ballot, then go to the DMV, and you'll have to bring that ID back and show it to your clerk by 4 p.m. on Friday, and your provisional ballot will still be counted. All voters, whether you're voting in person at the polls today or whether you voted absentee by mail, you first must be registered to vote before you're going to receive a ballot. So you must be registered to vote at your current name, your current address, and you can register to vote today at your polling place. So you can register to vote at the polls on election day. But when you do that, you're going to need to bring something called a proof of residence document. So this can be something like a utility bill, a bank statement. It could be your Wisconsin driver license or photo or your state ID card if it has your current address on it. But to get registered to vote, you're going to have to show something with your current address on it as well. And I think that's it in terms of tips that I have for voters as you're headed to the polls today. But I do want to thank all of our incredible local election officials, all of our clerks in our 1,850 cities, towns, and villages here in the state of Wisconsin, as well as the thousands of poll workers that are working the polls on this frigid Wisconsin day to make sure that voters have the opportunity to cast their ballot safely if they choose to do so in person today. So thank you to all of them. Thank you for all the preparations that you've made to make today's election day go very smoothly so far. So we really appreciate all of you out there and wish you the best as this rest of this election day continues. And with that, I would be glad to answer any questions that you may have.
Yeah, you can use the raise your hand function. We have one question so far, Henry Redman. Go ahead, Henry. You have to unmute yourself.
Hi, can you hear me?
Again.
Thanks. We had a story run in the Examiner this morning alleging a group of 10 people, including Commissioner Spindell, violated state law when they attempted to cast electoral votes for President Trump. Do you have any thoughts on a commissioner being accused of election fraud, and will the WEC investigate as requested?
Thank you for that question. Complaints that are filed that allege any sort of fraud are considered by the Commission under Section 5.05. Those are confidential, and the only information that can be released about those complaints are once the Commission has met to consider and has voted or moved on an action. And so the Commission will consider any complaints that have been brought before them, and then, in accordance with the law, we would release those findings after they've made a motion.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions?
Well, it looks like a smooth election day and a smooth media availability. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks everybody for coming. I will post a link. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to email the media list with a link to the video in case anybody wants to use it for later. Thank you very much for coming.
Thanks, everyone. Happy Election Day.
This program is a production of Wisconsin Eye, an independent, nonpartisan, nonprofit media network with a mission to inform, educate, and engage the citizens of Wisconsin. Wisconsin Eye is the nation's first and only independently funded state civic broadcast network, providing gavel-to-gavel access to government proceedings and events at the state capitol.